Hey, this is Eric from Alabama.
And I'm Gerry in Boston. We want to welcome our listeners from the United States and around the world, and to all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day. It's Another Sunday Podcast. And a happy Father's Day. Hello, Eric.
Hey, how are you?
I am doing better than I deserve. Thank you. This is
Same
our
here.
great. This is our Father's Day episode here, and we want to wish all of the dads out there a happy Father's Day. Thank you for listening. Hope you had a great Father's Day. How are things in Alabama? Warming up down there, I'll bet.
Yes. Yeah, we are in summer for sure.
This episode here, like our Mother's Day episode, I thought would be a good idea to kind of talk about our fathers. And your dad is still with us, and we'll talk a little bit about him. And my dad finished up his earthly chores about 29 years ago, so I have some memories of him we can talk about as well. So, Eric, tell us about your dad. You have some interesting stories to tell. I know we've talked about him before. You guys doing the reenactments and things like that. Tell us a little bit about your dad.
Yeah, I look like him. He has my same last name. He's married to my mother.
All the normal things.
What else? Oh, no. Well, my dad, my dad was also in the Guard here in Alabama. I guess that's where I got a lot of my interest in military stuff, but also in history. He's a history buff. That's how I got into reenactment. I was doing that with him. That was kind of our thing that we did growing up. And I don't know. I don't really have any stories necessarily that I can think of off the top of my head, but I just remember he always, worked hard to take care of us and always kind of guided me and my sister in a good way, in a good direction, and kind of gave us a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom. And
do you remember anything that he might have taught you that like today? They always say, well, you turn into your parents, or you turn into your dad, right?
oh yes, oh my gosh. Well, last year I was talking to somebody about something, and as I was speaking, like it just struck me. I'm like, that sounds like my dad. Just my voice and the things I was saying or whatever, it was like, that sounds like my dad. So, and my dad, when he blows his nose, it makes like a trumpet sound. And I always used to make fun of him for it. I always like teased him or whatever, Um, and people who haven't heard it before, they hear him blow his nose or whatever, and they're like, "Oh my gosh," and so about a year or two ago, I blew my nose and it made that sound, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Here so it begins.
Did do you remember anything that, or does he say anything that like they have these like witty phrases, or I don't. I remember one of the phrases my dad used to say. And say, "Well, did you do something?" I forgot. Did you forget to remember, or remember to forget? Do you have any witty kind of sayings like that, or things that you find yourself saying and go, "Oh, I know exactly where that came from."
Not necessarily. Not off the top of my head. Most of it's mannerisms and stuff like that.
He was big into the family, right? He always you know, with the family when he had, you know, the opportunity, he was home or whatnot, right? You guys were like a close family.
Yeah. Yeah. We always, you know, did stuff together and
Go on trips or anything like that, or
well, yeah, always to Pennsylvania, and we go see my granddad, and you know, it's like being with my granddad and then my dad and then me.
oh, it must have been cool, the three generations together.
Yeah, yeah, and you can see, you know, where we all get our stuff from, you know, or like I said, our mannerisms and our humor and the things that we laugh at and the way we carry on and converse or whatever. It's, you know, I guess a lot of it's inherited.
Well, I think that's true of most people. We find ourselves saying things, or like you said, doing things, or anything that you may, you know, like you may fondly remember that he may have done, or it's, something that was like, wow, you know, you made you like really impressed, like, wow, I didn't know Dad could do that, or wow, that was pretty cool. Or, did he ever teach you how to like hunt, or did he teach you how to drive a car?
Yeah, he did teach me how to drive a car. Yeah. And I remember him telling me what he was told when he was taught how to drive, and that you know, you don't pay attention to what's right in front of you. You look out ahead. You know, you look out the road a good ways, and you just keep your eyes on your lane for the most part, you know. Um and you'll end up going there. Don't worry about trying to stay in your lane so much right in front of you. Just look out forward and you'll get there. So, little stuff like that. He was always very when I was learning to drive, he was calm, and you know, he was, if I made a mistake or whatever, he's like, "All right, don't worry about it. You know, just fix it." So,
It's okay, just pull the fender out.
yeah, no, I never did anything like that. Ran a couple stop signs, but yeah. So, and he and I, we,
You were just looking out ahead. You weren't looking at what was right in front
oh
of you,
yeah,
right?
right. Yeah. But no, I mean, you know, we always went shooting together when I was little. That was fun. You know, that's
Shooting
um
on the range, or did
yeah,
you?
shooting on a
Mhm.
range. We'd go um
Was he deployed when he was in the guard?
yes, but stateside. He was stateside when I was in middle school. And but we would go to see him. Uh so he was up in Dahlonega, stationed there, but we would go see him and hang out with him or whatever. But like I said, a lot of my interest in military things and in history I inherited from him. So
He got you into the reenactment events that you do.
yeah, yeah, and that was our thing. You know, we would, when I was a kid, we would do a weekend and go on a reenactment that weekend, or you know, go to the American Village for Memorial Day or Fourth of July, and that was our, I guess, our thing we did together. So
I remember meeting him in 2019, I think, when I was there visiting. We went to that Oktoberfest. I think I met him at the show, but definitely Oktoberfest, sitting at the table there. And did he get into costume? I know you dressed for the
oh yeah,
occasion. Yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah. That was my first. I think the first time I saw him. I was like,
So I remember being a kid, and we were walking. I was little kid, and we were walking in the woods in Pennsylvania, and we were going to this. There's a big rock in the middle of the woods, and when Dad was a kid up there, they would go see it, and there was a used to be a big field, and they would go sit and just, you could see for a long way. But we would go visit it. But we were walking through the woods going to see the rock, and you know, I was being a little kid and just talking, you know, like little kids do. And I remember he told me, he said, listen, he said, when you go through the woods, you stay quiet and you keep your eyes open and your ears open, because you might see things, you know, a deer or something like that in the woods. So, you know, you stay quiet and you look around, you kind of take in that experience of being out in the woods. And so I've always taken that with me. And even now, like when you go with a group of people, I've been, like with a church trip or hiking with a group of friends, I've that always kind of gets me, or gets under my skin a little bit. So, everybody's talking, cutting up, having a good time, talking about all this stuff. And they're walking through the woods and they're just yapping and not paying attention to anything. And they're missing everything that's going on around them, and so I've always done that, if I'm in the woods or in nature, but that's something that he taught me and told me as a kid that I've always taken with me.
Yeah, dads always seem to, I know there are things that I hear myself saying, or actually things that I do that I got from him. And sometimes you're conscious of it, and other times you're not.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's what Dad did. So he was, my dad was a mechanic. He was a Navy man, served in the Korean conflict. And when he left the Navy, he was a mechanic, an auto mechanic. Mostly Fords, but he pretty much could fix almost any kind of car or even trucks. He ended up, right before he passed, he was working for the town. He was a fleet manager. But he was still getting his hands dirty, and he was in there on some of these dump trucks and plows and fire trucks and all this other stuff that he was getting his hands dirty on. But he was a guy he was a hard worker. I never saw anybody, even to this day, work as hard as this guy. And I think it was almost like just overworked, He was a great provider for the family. There were 5 of us kids. There are 5 of us kids. And it was really simple for him. Monday through Saturday he worked. Saturday night was him and my mom. That was their time. And they would go out, and whether it be out to eat or to a movie, or we had some cousins that played in a bluegrass band. They went out to see them. But Sunday was always family day, every single Sunday. And if it was the winter time, most of the time we ended up at the airport back in the day when they had the observation decks. You could go out on the roof of the terminal, and they had those magnifying glasses there. You put the quarter in, and you could look at the planes. And he always had a little portable radio with an earplug in where he could listen to the aircraft. And he would bet my brother and I like a nickel that he could tell what the next airline that was going to land was. And we had no idea that he was listening to this in his ear. We said, boy, Dad's really smart. He knew that was going to be a American Airlines plane. Or how did he know that was going to be a Delta plane? And now, so I think my brother discovered the wire or something coming out of his ear. and that's how we knew. And in the summertime, in Salem, Massachusetts, there was a huge park with arcade games and picnic areas. At one time, there was amusement rides there. It's right along the Atlantic Ocean. And every Sunday in the summer, pack everybody up early in the morning, and we would park the car, and we would walk a half mile or so into this park, lay down the blanket, put up the chaise lounge, takes his Sunday paper, plops his ass in the chair, and then buries himself in the paper. Meanwhile, my brother and I and my sisters had to figure out what to do because the arcade didn't open till noontime, and here it was not even 9 o'clock in the morning. My mother had always, made some breakfast and sandwiches for lunch and whatnot, and we would be there till 4 or 5 in the afternoon. So we had to figure out what to do for like 3 hours. And he would give us $1 to go play some arcade games. And back then, $1 was for arcade games. You could get a few games for, a quarter or whatever, and my brother and I would figure out how to get the free games because, people didn't realize that little number there with the free games, so we'd have a little contest. But that's what we did every single Sunday. Salem Willows was the name of the park in the summer, and either the airport itself or across the harbor, there was a little beach area where the planes landed. You were right at the end of the runway. He had all these funny phrases, these witty little phrases that, as a kid, we thought sometimes were funny and sometimes we just didn't get it. Like, he would say stuff like, if I was the last man on earth, some idiot would turn left in front of me. Okay. Did you hear about John Smith? He drew the big casino today. Which translates into he passed away. He drew the big casino. So he would have, sayings like that. Of course, like I said, did you forget to remember or remember to forget? Another one I remember was, don't make a high mass out of a Hail Mary. Witty things like that. But he taught us all. He taught me so much. Buying a car, I can remember buying my first car. And I wanted a new car. And I had saved up enough money for this new car. And at that time, the new car was a nice, good-sized 6-cylinder, might have even been an 8-cylinder at that time, Buick. And it was $11,000. And I'll never forget going into the dealership and he being a mechanic and knowing things about cars and having bought a car or two in his lifetime, had these little tricks. Do you know what car you want? Yeah, I want this Buick Regal. Okay, so we're going to look at that for 30 seconds, and then we're going to go walk over to that car over there that's really super cheap. The salesman's going to see that we like this one, and he's going to try to bring us back to the car that you really want, and I'm going to try to talk him down. Okay. 4 hours in the dealership to get like $4,000 off this car. And he did all of the talking. And things like, he'd look at the list and say, what is this mirror glaze, $99? And the salesman's like, well, that makes the car shine. You can see yourself. He goes, I don't want it. Take it off. Guy's like, it's not. It's like wax, sir. You can't just take it. I don't want to pay for it. Oh, well, that's okay. We'll just take it off the bill. What's this cigarette lighter? $6. I don't smoke. I don't want a lighter. Take it out. No. It's in the car. And by the way, for our listeners who may be young and don't remember, cars came with cigarette lighters and ashtrays. So he would pick on everything. And the whole time, this salesman is telling him that we really should make the deal. The sales manager is at dinner, and if we just make this deal now, I know I can get it approved, and we, I'll worry about getting in trouble with the sales manager later, but this is like the best deal we can make. And he taught me not to be an impulse buyer. If you see something you like in a magazine, for example, put it down and look at it the next day. If you still feel the same way about that item, buy it. But if you don't buy it. Same thing with a car. So he said to this salesman, I'm going to go across the street and grab a cup of coffee, and then I'll come back in a few minutes, and we'll talk. Well, of course, the salesman doesn't want you to walk out of the dealership. He just spent 4 hours with them of his time, and he hasn't made a sale. And we went over, I believe it was a bowling alley or something across the street from this dealership, and he bought a cup of coffee. I had a soda. And he's like, well, what do you think? I said, I really like it. He goes, I think I can get another $1,000 off the car. He'd already talked the guy down like $3,000. I'm tired. I'm getting aggravated, right? I'm hungry. I think the deal's good. And it's just, we had been there for 4 hours. So we go back across the street, and the guy lit up. The salesman, he thought he lost us. And he goes, I would buy that car, but I just don't I think it's just too much money. So he ended up getting another $500 or $600 off the car. He figured that was the end of that. There was no more negotiating here. So it came out to be a little more than $11,000. And if you've ever bought a car in a dealership, they take you, now you got to go see the finance guy. This is the guy that's going to sell you everything, right? Or try to sell you everything. So we sit down, and this finance guy's there, and he's like, oh, it's nice to see you. How was the salesman? He goes, look, don't give me any BS. I'm telling you right now, I don't want any cleaner. I don't want mud flaps. Whatever it was. He goes, I don't want any of this crap. I don't want the extended warranty. I just want to sign the deal. So the guy said, well, I have this new product, and he holds up this bottle, and he goes, it's really good for the interior of your car, and I really highly recommend it. My father looks at me, and he looks at this guy, and he goes, do I look like a dope? And the guy goes, I'm sorry, what? He goes, do I look like a dope? He goes, you're trying to sell me cloth cleaner. He goes, do you even know the car I'm buying has leather seats? So again, and I'm quiet, and I have no idea. Finally, the guy says, okay, and he slides the paperwork over to my father to sign for this car, and the salesman is standing next to him, next to the finance guy. And my father slides the paper and the pen over to me, and he goes, oh, no, this is for my son. Well, the salesman, he looked like he saw a ghost. His mouth just dropped. He turned pale white. He's like, this 18 or 19-year-old kid, I just negotiated this deal thinking that it was my father was going to buy the car, and it was for me. As we're leaving the dealership, the salesman comes up and introduces himself as the sales manager. The sales manager wasn't at dinner. It was actually him. So I kind of chuckled, and my father responded. He goes, I knew it the whole time. He goes, you didn't act like a salesman. And so the guy said something that really, at the time, for the moment, pissed me off. When he turned to my father and he goes, I wouldn't want to run into people like you every day. He goes, I can't make any money. My father's like, you're gonna eat tonight. And the guy goes, well, you know something? He goes, I would have taken a lot less for that car. So I took that as like, oh, you son of a gun.
Yeah.
He just took a shot at my father, and after all that, and my father, without missing a beat, goes, and I would have paid a hell of a lot more. Have a nice night. And with that, it was beautiful. And with that, out the door we went.
That's good.
So
That's
he
good.
taught me certain things about how to buy a car. Now when I buy cars now, and I bought, I think, 2 new cars since then, I don't spend 4 hours. And we have more information now, internet and stuff like that, so we kind of know what's going on. But the basic thing I did learn, and I do this every time I buy a car, is I leave. Before I make that final deal, sign any paperwork, and I'll say, I'm going to go across the street, and I'm going to get a cup of coffee. Or I'm going to go out to my car, and I'm going to think about this, whatever the deal is. And they do not want you to leave. And 9 times out of 10, or I should say 2 times out of 3, in this case, they actually knocked some more money off the car if I would just make the deal right now. And I went, one guy, I'll take $500 off the car. Oh, great. You do that. I'm going across the street for a cup of coffee and still leave. So now, but he taught me things like that. If you ever met my father, I would not see you for about 3 hours. He would take you and he would walk you around the lake in town. And he would ask you every question that he could think of in that time. You're from Alabama. Yeah. Do they have streetlights? What are the people like? But he would ask questions like that. He asked a friend of mine one time if they had streetlights where he lived.
What
Dad,
are
they have
lights?
street lamps, street light, like lights.
Yeah,
on,
what are they?
What?
I'm just kidding.
Okay, you got me. But he was that friendly, and we would go on vacation every summer for 2 weeks, and he would tell, my brother and my sisters, whatever year it was, okay, pick a friend you want to invite up for this weekend or this week or whatever to spend with us. He would give you the shirt off your back. He would do whatever he could for anybody. And when he passed away, I was so impressed with the turnout at his wake. I was blown away. If I could get a third of the people to come by when I pass, I'll be happy. I forget the number was something like 600 people signed this book. He knew everybody, and everybody knew him. That was my dad, and I miss him every day. And if I can be half the man he was, I would be doing okay. Dad, miss you. So that's pretty much our Father's Day episode. Great to talk about Dad and your dad, and I hope he is well. And looking forward to seeing everybody, hopefully this year, 2021, if I can get down there, and maybe catch the Oktoberfest again this year, and the band. Grab a meal with mom and dad.
Hey, yeah.
Share some stories.
Maybe some Kansas City steaks.
There you go. There you go. There you go. We'll let you cook them up on the grill. You got any other anything else for Dad or about Dad or?
I don't know. My mind's drawing a blank on stories. I know there are things out there, and I'll probably remember them tomorrow. So, but it's just it's so many things. So many little things. How do you filter through all that in an hour or whatever? And so,
yeah, it's just as I said, I could probably go on for days. I'm sure there are other things that I could think of and talk about, and maybe we do another episode around the holidays or something like that, and just talk about maybe what they were like around the holidays. My dad did some interesting things around the holidays, so we can talk about those in the future and whatnot. So, with that said, if the listeners out there have any ideas for a show, or if they want to become a part of our show, we'd love to have you. To drop us an email over at itsanothersundaypodcast at gmail.com. And the same if you know of somebody that might have an interesting story to tell. We have some other interesting shows coming up. We've got a show with our razor collector, as well as some other guests that we are reaching out to that I think will be entertaining to our audiences. So stay tuned for that. That's all I have, my friend. I will leave the last word to you.
Happy Father's Day, and remember, roll with the changes.
It's Another Sunday Podcast is produced by Erich and Gerry. Music composed and performed by Tom Blaze. Check out Tom's YouTube channel for all of his content at Tom Blaze. That's going to do it for episode number 29. This Father's Day episode. Happy Father's Day out there. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.